Hello and welcome back to All About Community. When we went to break, I promised you that my next guest would be Doug Davis, who is an architect right here in the Bay Area. Doug, welcome to All About Community.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here.
Yes, it's great to have you. Now, let's talk for a moment about your background and how you became an architect. Well, where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in Orange County, which
Orange County,
Orange
all
County,
right.
which a lot of people think is fabulous. They call it the OC and all that stuff now. When I was growing back up there in the 70s, it was very much what I would consider Fairfield is now, just very semi-rural, very agrarian, but very middle class and very Midwestern at the time.
Ah, you were at high school there?
Yeah, I went to Foothill High School, and then from there I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo.
Cal Poly, all right.
Yeah, I got my bachelor's in architecture there, and I also got my MBA there, and then I moved on up to the Bay.
All right, very good. When did you decide you wanted to become an architect?
I think I was around the 6th grade when I decided to do it, and when I was a kid, I played with Legos and blocks, and I was also into D&D basically back in
What's D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh.
And one of the things about Dungeons and Dragons is you have to basically make your own universe. You have to design your own worlds. And the nice thing about designing all this stuff is kind of you realize you had the power to kind of go through and shape environments. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I really liked about it is there was a technical aspect to it in terms of basically how you design buildings, and there was like an aesthetic aspect to it, in terms of moods you're trying to set. And that really blended together nicely, and that's really why I like architecture.
Did your parents have any influence?
They did in one respect. My dad was an industrial engineer, and later on he was a vice president of Mattel Corporation. He left that to start his own plastics manufacturing business. And then my mom joined him as kind of like his administrator. But they were entrepreneurs, and that definitely influenced, my decision to kind of go through and start my own firm at some point.
I can see that. Now, did you have any mentors or anything like that?
Not like directly in like the field of architecture. I followed my dad in terms of his ability to set up a business. I had a wonderful uncle who was an attorney. I had
a lawyer.
A lawyer.
Love lawyers.
I had another one, an instructor who basically was my drafting instructor, who was very encouraging. So, it wasn't like I was under a great architect, but I had a lot of people in my life that kind of shaped me in terms of where I wanted to go.
Now, what was your career path after graduating from Cal Poly? Did you go immediately into architecture or what?
Yeah, I worked for a firm in Silicon Valley. It was called WHL Architects and Planners, but at that time, it was the start of the dot-com era, and we did everything from clean rooms for Intel to large offices basically for the dot-coms at the time. We also did a lot of biotechnology facilities as well. And that was my first exposure really to the industry.
Now, what was your career path that in architecture that sort of led you to the establishment of your firm?
Well, I think the first thing that everybody has to do is if you join a profession, you got to learn the ropes, right? And the firm I joined, it was very sink or swim mentality. It was the dot-com era. Everything was running at 5,000 miles an hour, and they didn't have enough experienced people at the time, just because, like now, there's kind of a shortage of talent. So either you learn how to manage a project and run it, or you're out of there. And I figured out how to run projects, and I got promoted to a project manager fairly quickly. And that was great for about 3 or 4 years. And honestly, when I fell asleep on the 101 freeway going home at 2 o'clock in the morning, fortunately I coasted off the side.
You actually fell asleep?
I actually fell asleep.
Did you have an accident?
No accident, thank God.
You woke up just in time?
I woke up, but that just kind of told me that, okay, I'm probably working a little too hard at this thing, I need to find something else. So decided to move to the East Bay. I worked for a different firm, MBH Architects Alameda, which is one of the larger firms in the Bay Area, and I met my future business partner there. And long story short is at the morning of my wedding, about 2004, when I kind of wanted to just take a little breather, he and I had breakfast, and he kind of approached me with the idea of starting this firm, and the time was right. It was at the point where I felt I had learned enough in my profession. I wasn't really learning, I was kind of more doing, and rubber seemed to be the road right at that moment.
Now, and you've founded the firm of AE3.
AE3
Three
partners.
partners. What does that stand for?
So it's interesting you ask. My profession, all firms have like 3-letter acronyms, and it was just to the point where it's like, okay, let's do a little something different. And we decided that we wanted to put a number in it just to kind of shake things up a little bit, especially if you're new. We wanted to start with the letter A, but a very popular term in my profession is A&E, which stands for architect and engineer. At the time, we had 3 partners, you know, so I said like AE3, that seems to work. And the other thing is, Rick Dumas, who's my business partner and I, didn't want to put our names in the firm because we felt that ultimately the firm was going to grow beyond us. You know, so we didn't want to go through and satellite
And it
life.
did.
And
And it
has,
has.
you know, and you know that kind of gives the flexibility of evolving beyond us, which you know is something we think is kind of a good thing for any firm.
Now, you started with 2 people. It is now expanded 30 plus.
Yeah, 28 people right now. We were high 30s once, but yeah.
Okay, but over 20 people.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you explain that growth?
Well, I think it kind of comes down to 2 things. If you have a firm or you want to start a firm, you know at some point you have to add people on board, but you know, our philosophy but toward our clients has always been, it's all about the client, you know, and I think sometimes architects kind of get wrapped up in their own mystique, you know, and they forget that they're in the customer service industry. You know, if I'm designing a house for you, it's not my house, it's your house, and I need to understand and respect that. I need to learn everything about you in terms of what do you want in the living room, you know, what kind of yard do you want, and I think the way that architects can serve their clients better is to listen more, you know, understand them, and we have gotten some big commissions because our clients felt that we were listening to them more.
And Doug always adheres to the motto, it's all about the client.
It's all about the client.
We're going to have to go to break, so don't touch that remote. Matter of fact, just put it down. We will be right back with All About Community. My name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Doug Davis, an architect right here in the city of Oakland. We will be right back. Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Doug Davis, architect right here in the city of Oakland. Doug, when we went to break, we were talking about a number of things, but how does AE3 rank among black businesses here in the Bay Area?
So the Book of Business Times did put out a list, you know, of all the African American businesses, and we were number 5 on that list.
Number 5.
now I
That
will
means
say
you've been growing. Now,
been
what
growing.
year were you founded in?
We were founded back in 2007 is when we started the firm. You know, and I will say that I'm not sure if that list was inclusive of every African American business because I was a little suspect about that, but we're on the list.
Yeah, I remember you about 2008, maybe 2009, when I was on the board of what do you call Alter Alliance. I mean, you
yes.
came in to visit and you wanted to talk about, I guess,
PG&E.
at that time I had retired at PG&E, and you wanted to talk about it. Okay, well, we're going to get
Absolutely.
to that later on, but are you a member of the Oakland African American Chamber of
We
Commerce?
are members of the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce.
Do you think you get value out of that?
You know, I think it's tough in the sense that Oakland is always kind of a politically changing environment, right? You know, and I think sometimes organizations have to kind of move with it, but there's definitely a value being part of the African American Chamber.
Now, we're in Black History Month. What's the importance of Black history to you?
Well, I think as I get older and I really understand just, you know, what it is to be an African American male, essentially, in the Bay, a lot, you know, and, you know, the one thing that people don't realize about architecture is we shape our environments. We're here in a studio, you know, we basically go to offices in our homes, and architects shape the very environment which kind of shapes our community. And like the same way that we want to have a voice at the table for shaping our communities, we need to have a voice basically in shaping the design of our communities, you know, from everything from just the facilities and everything else. So from an end, yes, I think it's incredibly important, and we have really kind of looked at basically a social aspect to all of our projects.
Now, there are, my late cousin was a architect, Fred Clement. There are not many black architects around, and why is that?
Boy, I don't know how to speculate on the reasons, but you're right. The last time I checked, I think we're like under 2 or 3% of the profession. If you look at African American women in the profession, it's even lower. But yeah, we're not that many. I don't know if it's because people haven't been encouraged in the profession, or people just can't think that, hey, I shouldn't be part of it. I don't know, but yes, the numbers don't lie.
Yes, indeed. Now, let's talk for a moment about some of the areas of practice you're currently engaged in. I know you're in commercial, residential, interior design, etc. Let's go through some of the major
Sure.
projects that you've had. Let's start with South Central LA Regional Center Legacy Building.
Yes.
What was that all about?
So regional centers, there's about 22 of them in the state of California. They're nonprofits, and they basically provide all the state aid to developmentally disabled persons. And the South Central Los Angeles Regional Center was the one that provided all that aid to South Central, and they basically have a very important community that has, young and old, a variety of people that are just differently abled. And they were looking for a new home. And our commission was basically to design them they were in this old dumpy building at USC. They want to create a new home that basically would serve them for the next several generations.
And how were you able to get that business?
So the way we kind of get our jobs is just networking, getting to know people, and nothing's instantaneous. Even this project wasn't instantaneous. They talked to us about it right when we started the firm, and I said, hey, great, but we have somebody else that's lined up for it. Okay, great. 4 years later, we got another phone call saying, like, the first team didn't work out, so we'd like to talk to you. And it's weird just how these little things kind of come around, but because of a casual connection, several years later, it led to an opportunity to do this project, and that's how we got the job.
So networking becomes very important.
You have to get yourself out there. I think when you're a business owner, part of it is just, people want to work with folks that they're comfortable with, that they feel will do the job. In a way, it kind of trumps that person's qualifications. So getting to know people, getting yourself out there, whether basically be in a circle of friends or just basically in professional networks, that's the way to, get to a job.
Have you, in a general sense, ever encountered what you believe to be discrimination in?
Oh yeah, I mean it's not overt as it is, in most professions, but you can tell the floor is just a little slope, and it's basically it's not in your direction, and it's little microaggressions. It's going through interviewing for projects. You find out that one team got 5 questions and you got 20 questions. A lot of them about where'd you get your qualifications, and have you done anything like that before? And everybody that's done it, they've all been nice persons, of course, but we're trying to get people in touch with it's those little subtle biases that, cost us economic opportunities. And we're hoping that people can get a little bit more in touch with that and realize that, hey, there's a wonderful, diverse group of firms out there that can basically help you out.
The Golden State Mutual Building
Yes.
down in Los Angeles, which is
Paul
historic.
River Williams, yeah.
Paul Williams, who is one of the noted, even I know about him through my readings of great architects. We're going to have to go to break, but when we come back, we want to talk for a few minutes about the Golden State Mutual Building and Doug's involvement there. So don't touch that remote, put it down. We will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris, and my guest is Doug Davis, an architect right here in the city of Oakland. Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Doug Davis. Doug Davis is an architect right here in the city of Oakland. And when we went to break, I was about to ask him about the Golden State Mutual Building down in Los Angeles area, where he did some work on a building that was originally designed by Paul Williams, a noted architect. So Doug, tell us, how did you get involved in that?
Well, it was part of the South Central Los Angeles Regional Center project. The site that they bought literally had this building on it. And the story of the company is fascinating. It was founded back in the 20s by a Texan guy who was in the insurance industry that got run out of town literally because he tried to organize a voter drive. He settled in Los Angeles and discovered there was an underserved market of African Americans and other people of color that didn't have life insurance. And he solved that market, and 30 years later he was building this building. And the thing that was kind of unique about it is there was so much history in this one building. The Golden State Mutual Life Insurance Company fell into receivership, and the state took it over. And basically, our clients were taking the building back, basically.
And if I remember correctly, that originally was founded by Hudson. Was it Hudson?
Nickerson was one, and then Hudson. There's an interesting rivalry between 2 to 3 people started the thing, which I don't want to reignite or get into.
No, don't do that.
But I'll simply say that there was a big part of history that had to be preserved, and I really felt in that moment that all of us felt this thing was bigger than all of us, in terms of history that had to be done. We built a monument to Paul Revere Williams, that included basically a big bas relief of him, as well as some panels that tell the story. And getting that story right was just so critically important to us. And we restored the building to the way it looked at in 1947. You want to just go back to that moment of time and say, like, okay, this is what happened. This is history that needs to be preserved and kept. And we hopefully have preserved it for the next several generations.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, PG&E.
Yes.
Let's talk for a moment about the PG&E project up in Auburn. How did that happen? I know it certainly happened long after I retired from PG&E.
It happened because, long story short, we got connected with somebody from PG&E that felt that the current set of designers were not listening to them. And we said, okay, what do you need? And it turned into a small project and turned into a major project, and we ultimately wound up doing the whole new playbook on how PG&E does its service centers. And as you know, Bob, if you think of utility, it has a massive amount of infrastructure.
Utilities, I used to work for
There you
one.
go. But, it has a massive amount of infrastructure which has to be maintained behind the scenes, from everything from the engineers, the fleets, and these things maintained it. And they realized that, after 30, 40 years, nobody had updated how they worked. And this service center was an opportunity to really define PG&E's new working environment.
Now, you are the treasurer of the 100 Black men of the Bay Area.
Yes.
How's it feel being the treasurer? That means you deal with the money.
I think they call it the CFO, but also
that's right. That's the new title.
It's the new title.
Everybody gets CFO now.
But I'll say this. I mean, the reason why I joined the 100 is if we're African Americans and we're lucky enough to be doing what we're doing, I got to a certain point in my life where I felt that, okay, you know what? We have to pay it forward somehow. And I joined the 100 originally because I wanted to do youth mentoring. And I'm not naive enough to think that you can save the entire world, but we can all touch 1 or 2 or 3 lives around us. And I spent very much the first part of my time in the 100 doing that. And later on, as my business took off, I had less time for that. But, I was good at doing the numbers, keeping the books, and I continued the legacy of the prior CFO, who I think who left us on, his duties unexpectedly. But we want to continue on our work, and we want to make sure that we are reliable, investment basically for a lot of our donors, and we have 2 great presidents have done some awesome work over the last few years, and we're really increasing the amount of corporate sponsorships we get, and we just want to make sure the money's responsibly handled.
The 100 Black men are involved in a lot of projects. Can you think of some that are of particular interest to you?
I think the biggest one which I'm rooting for is the OK program, which basically uses
our kids.
Our kids, I mean, to me, that's the most important thing. It's all about our kids. We lose a lot of people who could be doing what we're doing, Bob, because they didn't have that path in life, or nobody gave them the right direction at the right time. And I think, to me, it is important that we basically have those people and those resources there to make sure that people that want to go that path can,
The influence that men such as Doug Davis can have upon our young people is so important. Unfortunately, we got to go to break, but when we come back, we want to talk a little bit more about the 100 Black men and Doug Davis's role in the 100 Black men. So don't touch that remote. We will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris, and my host is Doug Davis, an architect right here in the city of Oakland. Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest he's not my host. He's my guest, Doug Davis, right here in Oakland, an architect. Doug, we were talking about the OK program and why that is important, and being a mentor and helping these young black boys develop and become men. Why is that important to you?
Well, again, I felt that early on I lucked out because I had a lot of good mentors that helped guide me in the right direction. You know, when my life could have taken a turn, you know, somebody was there. And as I got older, you know, I began to realize that the reason why a lot of people didn't follow that path is they didn't get that right guidance at the right moment. You know, in some cases, they didn't know that a career and option was available to them.
And the OK Kids program, I guess, had a camp out. No, not a camp out, but a trip to somewhere up around Ruth Lake.
Ruth, California, yes.
And I understand that you flew in there.
Flying
your own plane, is that right?
I did. I am private pilot as well. It's something I like to do, and I did fly in. That summer camp happens to have an airstrip right next to it, so my reasons for that, I hate to say this, were more transportation related. It's a 6-hour drive or a 90-minute flight. I decided to take the 90-minute flight. But
and I understand those kids just really freaked out when they saw a black man flying a plane right into the lake there.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that people were taping me as I took off out of there. But, you know, just removing me out of the equation entirely. The motto of 100 black men is basically what they'll see is what they'll be, right? You know, so it's important, you know, to basically expose kids to African Americans and others who basically have careers, that basically have made those decisions, that basically allow them to have a life they want to have. And, you know, a lot of these kids don't even think it's possible. They don't even think a black man can fly. So, you know, the moment they see that, or they see somebody like you, or they basically, you know, see, you know, the Oakland police officers are part of the OK program, being nice to them, helping them out, they realize that there's a different world they can be part of. And I think that exposure is huge to basically, you know, let people, you know, access, you know, the options that are available to them in life.
And if there's something that you can say to influence our young black men, boys, what would that be to entice them to go on and develop?
Find and follow your passion. That's like the one advice I have for everybody. You like law, you know, you went into law and you basically excelled at it. You know, I like architecture, I went into it. And the reason why following your passion is important is basically this. You will have tough days. You will have setbacks. You know, and if you truly love what you do, you're going to get past those setbacks. If you went into something because, oh, you were supposed to, or just because of the money, you may not get past that tough day. But if you love what you do, you're going to do well at it, and everything else material is going to come with that.
And remember, there will be setbacks in life. There will be times when you will be knocked down.
Absolutely.
But remember this, if you're knocked down, make certain it's on your back. Because if you can look up, you can get up.
Absolutely.
That's a quote from, I think it's Wes Brown or whatever his name is.
And if you love what you do, you're going to get up a lot faster.
It's unfortunate we have run out of time, but remember this, no matter what you do, when you do it, or even how you do it, in the final analysis, it is still going to be all about community. Doug, I want to thank you for being my guest.
Pleasure being here. Really enjoyed
my
this.
guest. You've been really fantastic. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and this is All About Community. Thank you, Doug, for joining.